Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm the resident expert here at Skacel on all your knitting machine needs, and I'm here to show you how to take apart your machine in case you ever need to replace a part. In this video, I'll be showing you how to replace the large gold ring within your machine. And as you can see, I'm holding two different sizes, and this will be both for the king size as well as the pro. And the process is more or less the same, and I'll be demonstrating on the king size machine. So at this point, I've already removed the yarn guide ring and the red ring. And now with my Phillips screwdriver, I'm going to be unscrewing these 4 screws in the middle. Also, as you're taking apart your machine, be sure to place different screws in different locations because they're not all interchangeable, so they won't all fit back in different spots. I'm removing the black inner ring. And at this point, in order to get to the gold ring, you're going to need to remove all of these needles. You're going to want to make sure to pay special attention to where your first black needle is already located before you take them all out. So I can see where my black needle is, and once you've removed all of your white needles, if you don't have any other way to recognize where this spot is, take a marker or a Sharpie and just put a little notch here to be sure that you're going to put the same first black needle here when you put your machine back together. And that will make sure when you're knitting a project again, your counter won't be counting the beginning of a round somewhere else. Now you can turn your machine upside down. On the bottom here, you will also notice there are 4 more screws that need to be removed. You could take off this bottom ring and set that aside. And within here, there are 4 more screws. This part can be a little bit awkward, so be sure that you hold on to your machine. Otherwise, once you switch from one side to the next, it just gets a little topsy-turvy. This is probably the most difficult part to replace on your machine, but once you get the hang of how your machine is put together, it really isn't too bad. So once you have all those 4 screws removed, we're going to separate the body, but be sure to be very careful when separating this part to not put too much of a gap between the section where your counter is, because that's where all of the wires live. So you're going to want to kind of keep that as the hinge and not pull these 2 pieces apart. And as you can see, you have a gold ring inside with a little black ring kind of going around it. So I'm going to keep a hold of the other body side of the machine here just to be safe. I'm going to take out the old gold ring and grab the new one. And we are going to need to put this little black ring back on. And be forewarned, the interior of your machine will be a little greasy because the manufacturer does put a little lubrication in there to make sure that you're going to have a smooth running machine for as long as possible. So if you need to, you can always put this down and be sure that this ring is going to be placed properly. So I'm lining up this little black ring. As you can see, there's a little notch here with the little hole in the gold ring for the perfect fit. And I'm going to put this back in with these gear teeth on the same side as the handle, because this little gear here is what's going to turn this whole ring around and make your machine knit. So we're going to want to put back that way. And put your machine back together very carefully, not to pull on the wires. Feel free to kind of go slow with this process and make sure everything is lined up properly. So once you have your body put back together, you're going to want to go ahead and insert your teeth again. And being conscious of where the beginning of your row is located. And I did not mark where my beginning of the row is. So I'm going to go ahead and run the counter until I can see it change. But if while taking apart your machine, you can think ahead to know to mark the area on your golden ring, go ahead and do that before you take your needles out. And all three of your black needles will go in a sequence. Number 1 will go in first, then you'll have the next 2. And every other needle after this will be white. Once you have your sequence correct, this is a very easy part. It's just a little bit tedious. Once you have inserted all of your needles back into your machine, you're going to want to grab this wide set inner ring that's going to go on the innermost part of the donut hole of your machine. It doesn't really matter which needles are where at this point, as long as they're in the correct sequence. So you're going to want to line up those triangles together, and that should also fall in line with the 4 little notches where you can screw back in this ring. So once you have that set in, you can go ahead and screw this part back. Once you have your inner ring secured, now it's time to put the red rings back on. And just like with replacing the needles, you want to make sure to put it on in the correct sequence. So I'm going to go around this red ring and find the number 1. And each number of the needle is imprinted on your red ring. So once I find number 1, I'm going to find this number 1 needle. And I know that because it's the first black needle, as in when it's facing you with the black needles on the innermost part of the ring. The one on the right-hand side is going to be number 1. So I'm going to make sure my number 1 part on the ring goes over that particular needle. And you just kind of want to wiggle it around to make sure it can grab the top of each needle so that each one goes through. Now that that's on, I can go ahead and put my yarn guide ring on here. And that will just fall right in. And you want to line up the notches on your ring with the 4 screws here. You're going to want to just go ahead and stick that back on. Once you have the top of your machine all screwed in and your yarn guide is secure, now, and you're going to want to grab the machine from the very bottom because you're going to want to screw in a couple of more components on the bottom, and you don't want the whole thing to fall apart if you don't pick it up from the bottom. So you're going to turn it upside down, and we're going to grab our 4 remaining screws for the inside of the body. And we're just going to go ahead and insert these and screw them in to secure the middle parts of the body together. Now that you have these 4 screws attached, you're going to want to pick up the very bottom ring that has these holes here for your feet. And we're going to line that up. And inside here, you'll see there's 4 points for the last 4 screws to go. So you just want to line up your holes there together. And it should just click right in. Home stretch. Now that you have the last part of your machine back installed, you can go ahead and screw your feet back on and attach it to your table and give it a test drive.